Here. Here we go. Welcome everyone to the Mastermind Book Club. In tonight's session, we're going to talk about the review of Coretta Scott King's book, My Life with Martin Luther King Jr. This book is amazing. I had never heard of it. I didn't know it existed. I don't know about many of you, but this book contains a lot of information that we all need to apply in our lives. So before I say my 2-minute review on this, I wanted to ask everyone here, what is your takeaway on this book? What is your takeaway? Your 1 to 2 things that you took away from this book? Anyone get a chance to listen to it?
Yeah. I did. Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Hello?
Looks like everything froze.
Anyone there?
Hello, hello.
Yes.
I think Dave froze.
Hello?
You're back. Can you hear us?
Bad connection. Sorry about that. I'm going to move out of here as well. So my last question was, Reg, what was your takeaway on this book?
Oh, there was so much. I mean, it was as if, for one, like you were actually sitting right in front of her as she was talking about her telling a story or recounting these different events that happened over the course of time. So, it was really personal, so I could say that a very personal, a recount of the history, what she went through, her dealings with just being with Martin Luther King, and in terms of what they dealt with, going through, whatever it was in terms of him doing what he did as a civil rights leader. But I thought it was pretty powerful, and I thought it was pretty good. And when you just heard her talk about things and the way that they, the kind of teamwork that they had together in terms of they both were very much strong in their stance, and it wasn't like, sure, Martin was the supposed leader of the family or whatever, but at the same time, like, Coretta was very much instrumental in everything that he did. So I really thought that was a good thing. And even he said, it was sort of like they had dialogue about that with him being the leader of the family, but there was a sort of understood thing that, yeah, I am the man, I am the leader, but at the same time, there was this sort of underlying that Coretta was definitely a boss in her own right too. So I thought that was a nice tell to hear that sort of thing. And she definitely stood her ground, and she definitely measured up very highly to whatever was going on. To basically, it wasn't like she was a second fiddle in any way. So that was cool to sort of like listen to that and sort of kind of bear witness to that. But there was a lot with that, just everything that they went through with just, stuff. Some of the stuff was just pretty strong and pretty, just almost like you were there, in terms of just things that they dealt with like the racism, recounts of racism, and all of that was just very.
That is right.
You could almost feel it. So kind of sucked, but that's part of the history, and they were able to help change things, the narrative that we lived at least to some degree, push the dial forward a little bit. I mean, we're still dealing with a hell of a lot of nonsense, but they did their best to kind of come in there and do their part and serve humanity, if you will. So
yes, correct. You did say very important things in what you just said. Number one is humanity. We're all different. but we are the same. We're the same, but different. And within that, there is no perfect way for anything. There is a right way, there's a wrong way, and there's a way that we don't necessarily see at times. But it takes two people to make a relationship happen, to make a family happen. And I believe that Coretta and Martin Luther King were meant for each other in every which way you can imagine. Does anyone else want to add to what Reggie just said? Thank you, Reg, by the way. That was very good.
You can hear me?
Yes, Martha.
Yeah,
Hi.
I don't see me on the screen, so I don't know if you can hear me. I see when you marry, when the people marry, it's very important that wives support the husband in everything about career, decisions, and dreams. So this woman made him more powerful than he was, because she support her in all his decision. She give you a family that he love, and a reason to fight for his family and for his people. This is very powerful for me. And Coretta Scott, she was agree that whatever her husband he was doing to take these people for the segregation and all these races the white people have for so many years. And she knew the husband probably he will live his life to free his people. And she knew that, and she expected, and she did with courage, volunteer, and she say at the end she want to continue to fight for Martin, for his legacy, and for his strength. And he's going to continue to fight for his people freedom. And Martin Luther King created a new technique to fight for freedom with peace, with courage, and with faith. He always say that.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Martha.
Wonderful.
It is. Thank you, Martha. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else want to add to what these two amazing people have already said? And I'm sure there are more amazing people here.
I do. I will say that number one, thank you for this book, because naturally it's probably not a book that I would have picked up, in my time of life right now, as far as trying to personally develop myself. This is probably not a book that I would have picked up. So I'm grateful for the Mastermind group and the collective minds to select this book, because again, it was perfect timing in terms of what we're going through right now. There were a variety of different things that showed up in this scenario. Number one, behind every good man is a good woman. And that is so true in this situation. It had to be difficult, it had to be tormenting to not know when that call was going to come. But it felt like they knew it was going to come at some point in time. He knew. Also, in this, you could tell that it got to a point where there was no turning back. If these people are going to sacrifice for me, I have no choice but to sacrifice for them. Now, his sacrifice was the ultimate sacrifice, and it puts him in a position where he is, raised on a level that not many leaders. He's got his own day, and that says a whole lot. However, in this book, it also reminds us to how many leaders were out there. Ralph Abernathy and Jesse Jackson, a variety of different other civil rights leaders who sacrificed just like he did. How many of those individuals who might have been just as great as Martin Luther King, but they disappeared when they went to jail? It had to be a scary time to know that you could disappear and nobody would look for you, and they would get away with it. So
Yeah.
that was, you know, unbelievable. It really was, and it kind of is indicative of that time to say, you know what, that's the life that they lived in, and you just learn to survive in it, you know, the best that you could. It was many things, man. It was a lot of things, but I think timing wise, it helped out a lot. I think that we saw in these stories there were individuals who were racist and their agenda was hate filled, but also there were a lot of individuals who that wasn't everybody. That was not every white person was not like that. But unfortunately, that small group of individuals make the whole look bad. It was powerful. It was a great story. It was a great reminder. And I would say that it would be amazing to be able to have the type of leader he was today. That would be so helpful, you know, because we're at this point in time, we have a lot of people running around trying to do, but nobody has grasped that mantle like that and been able for us to follow behind. You know, I personally would love to see a Barack Obama, a Bill Clinton, and a George Bush be able to create a coalition where there was no political bias. They've already been the president. We don't have any other aspirations. This is what's going to be our agenda, is to equality across the board. That would be amazing. So anyway, that's my take on the book.
Fabulous, Floyd. That adds a lot of nuggets to this review. Thank you, Floyd, and thank you for being part of the team, the family. The knowledge account is growing for you, for me, for all of us. And there's no better account to grow than the one that contains knowledge. That never perishes.
Right.
Thank you, Floyd.
Yeah, David?
Yes, Gina. Go ahead, Gina.
I would like to say something, but I guess you have to be a little careful because eventually this might go out because I'm running at the park. Sometimes you don't have good reception.
Okay.
That's not running. But I was going to say that racism is so deeply rooted.
Whoops.
Gina, we can't hear you, Gina.
Whoops, we're losing you.
You know, it's been brought along by the colonizers, you know, and it's hundreds. Can you hear me? Find a clear area.
Somewhat.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm saying that racism is so deeply rooted, you know, and I said it came from the, you know, conquistadores, colonizers who, and, you know, had this mentality of superiority, which psychologists are starting to realize was actually a mind of inferiority. And so for them to feel bigger, they had to try to lord it over other people, you know, and so they start to separate us all by races as though there are more than one race, you know. And I've been giving this some thought this week. And my idea is like, you know, my vision is that one day the word race will be relegated to competitions only and not to the human race because there's only one. And not only that, we're prejudiced among each other. We might not want to admit it, but we are, you know. And can you guys hear me still?
Yep.
And so that has been passed on to us. And we have to like notice instances where we have that in our heart toward one another. You know, even on the little island that I grew up in the Caribbean, I used to think people weren't prejudiced, you know, that we look at all each other the same. But once I sat down and really, you know, thought about it, now I hear some of the things that my parents would say or somebody else's parents would say, and mostly we're prejudiced towards our own race, you know, because we have been taught to do that. So anyway, in reading the book, I like how you guys brought out already that, you know, the kings, they had a partnership. Rather than him feeling he had to lord it over his wife, he helped her out where he could. and they were in it, and they knew that they were in it for life, you know. And one of the other things I think I noticed, or that, you know, kind of, it seems like when he was praying to God and something happened in his life that he seemed like he finally, you know, he touched God, he channeled him, and he reassured him that everything, you know, that he was going to be all right, he was going to take care of him. And so anyhow, and that made him feel better that he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, you know. And in the end, or not even in the end, but through the book. But I was really impressed because a lot of things, I guess I didn't know about the civil rights movement coming, like I said, from the Caribbean in my teenage years. I missed out on a lot of the history that was taught in school. But anyway, very impressive book. And I learned a lot. And I'm glad that you shared it with us. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for that review as well. You add on to what everybody else just said, and you know, I feel that you guys have summed up the book. I don't know if I should even start to say anything because what you guys said is very powerful. Does anyone else want to add? Thank you, Gina, by the way. Thank you. Anyone else want to add? It's on here. Let's see who else is on here. I think everybody.
Can I say something? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Ty. Yep. Go ahead.
Hey, hi everyone. Actually, I was kind of comparing like back then to today, and the only difference I see as far as like the condition of the people is that we don't have all the dogs and hoses. But as far as still protesting, trying to get things done, it's like 50 years and it's still like the same. It seems like things have gotten worse as far as the police brutality and as far as like with the, you know, like what's going on now. But I do appreciate that it was more, it was like more civil rights leaders back then. Like someone had just recently stated, I think they were trying to say Medgar Evers too, and Malcolm X was around at that time. So it almost seems like they had all of the civil rights leaders at one time, like during the 60s period, where if they could have just been spread out to like now, and you know, then we could have, you know, like more of a powerful force as far as for the people, you know. But it was totally an interesting book, especially hearing it from Coretta's own mouth and what she's experienced, because from what the documentaries that I've seen, they never said and showed that she had such a connection where she could just call the president like that and then he call her back, you know, because they were so busy talking about racism that who would think that, you know, President Kennedy, he's a white guy and, you know, this is a black lady and it's a big racial thing, but he called her back. His brother called her back from her own words, and I so respected like her whole, you know, like everything that she went through as far as, you know, like the racism, and then like being closely tied to the political connection, and also like the people like that. So I respected everything about, you know, what she went through and what her husband went through, and what they did for us as far as helping to keep our eyes open to what's going on now, you know. And that's all I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ty, for sharing. Thank you. Anyone else? Going once. Let's see who's left. Elmer, want to say anything, Elmer? Or is Elmer busy? Probably listening. All right. So.
As I'm right here, guys. Yes.
Elmer. Hey.
I enjoy listening to everybody's perspective. It's an amazing. It's definitely been a book that has brought a lot out, I guess, right, for all of us here. Is what I got out of it most for me was the level of commitment to the cause. It's like none other, and everybody was on the same vision. That just something that today's day seems to be something rare, but it's still there. But it's definitely an amazing book. I enjoy everybody's piece. Everybody, what one Gina was saying earlier, Sometimes we are prejudiced within each other. I've seen that happen, and I've been on the other side of that coin. It's not a pretty sight. So, yeah, but you know, we live and we learn, and we are always looking forward, like keen, looking for that, staying positive in the perspective, no matter what came on their way. It's quite amazing how the whole family was pretty much had to talk about the old. I remember that one part of the book where they had to talk about their feelings, that they had to express themselves. It was something definitely to keep in the books, because it's something new that a lot of people are missing today. So it's not really that new. It's been around for ages. It's just that today's busy life and people avoiding socializing and exploding their greatness, right? Per se, they think it's what this book teaches also, which I thought it was an amazing thing. Well, that's it for my piece today. I enjoy everybody's piece. I loved it. It was awesome, and I enjoyed being part of this group because it's helped me to grow with David tremendously. Appreciate you, David. Thank you.
Oh, Elmer, thank you for that brief summary on your part. You guys have all done a wonderful job. I feel like we should end it here because you guys have summed up this book beautifully. And I appreciate that, because it should never be about one person. It should be about us collaboratively. And you all are adding to what a mastermind group is supposed to be about. So I do want to say a few things very quickly, but very succinct and important things to go over. Number one, if a man has not found something worth giving his life for, he is not fit to live. If a man or woman has not found something worth giving his life for, he is not fit to live. He or she is not fit to live. All right? This is a famous quote that Martin Luther King said many times over to his wife, Coretta Scott King. And I mean, in reality, Martin Luther King is a martyr. He's someone who gave up his life for a bigger cause. Someone who was given the Nobel Peace Prize, which is normally recognized to international peace organizations or peace-related, activities that do not necessarily have to affect one part of the world. He received this honor. I don't remember which date it was. I think it was 1962, 1963. And he died because he found something worth giving his life for. Martin Luther King gave his life for peace, for nonviolence, for teaching ways that were different, that were not expected by whites in general. So both of them came from homes that faced huge discrimination. They were taught the value of self-respect and invested with hope of self-betterment, self-improvement. So where did they meet? In Marion, Massachusetts, near Boston, which I have been to. Marion, Massachusetts. I don't know how many of you know where it is. Now, how many people at that time were living there? It was 1,000 white, was the population, but 2,000 blacks.
Black.
However, the laws were so rigid that there was an excuse invented to keep blacks from voting. Either they had to pay a tax, or their grandfather had to have been registered to vote, which that was rare. Or some other weird story was made up. So what else can I tell you about this book? Martin Luther King learned two things in life. He learned the life of Jesus, as he was a pastor in a Baptist church. And he learned how to express himself through nonviolence. Something that many of us have either learned on ourselves, still need to learn, or just can't get it through our brains. Throughout the world, I don't care where you live. You can live in the most whitest of places in the world, or the place that's the most black of places, or in between. Discrimination will exist. Hate will exist. I don't like to say that word, but the reality is that to a certain extent, there will be people who don't like you, who disapprove, who are jealous, who don't want you to succeed. I'm in love with Coretta Scott King's voice. I know she's passed away, but she attracted me. Oh my God. It's like, wow, listening to this woman speak. And I don't know about you, but I was attracted to that voice. I was really attracted. And I connected with her. I connected with everything she had to say. You know, she was appropriate in every simple and dignified way in what she said about Martin Luther King. So Martin Luther King, according to this book, was definitely a justifiable force, a voice that needed to be heard in the US. Now, has everything been resolved? Not yet. Will it be resolved? I don't know if it will be resolved. But the reality is that we can educate others into practicing nonviolence, into just asking them simple questions. What are you going to gain from hate? It's unbelievable that when he gave his I Have a Dream speech, everyone expected him to fail. The news outlets expected him to fail. Politicians expected him to fail. As much as we would like to believe that the presidents were on his side, I tend to differ. I tend to say that they were somewhat on their side, but not completely. And why do I say this? Well, just as Martin Luther King studied, I believe it was Karl Marx, and he said, Karl Marx says half-truths. I believe that the same thing happened with the United States presidency to this day, even back then. Meaning they want to support him, but they don't want to get involved. They want to support him, but they won't come out right and get involved. Now, obviously, we have a clown of a president. We have a president who has brought racism to an all-time high, hate to an all-time high. It is really sad that people in the last few weeks in the US have gotten lynched, if you didn't know about this. If this is the first time you're hearing about this, I'm not here to bring you negative news.
No way.
But it's happened in the last few weeks, few days. I don't know exactly. It is really sad. It's been at least 3 or 4 weeks since this happened. There are going to be bad people no matter where you go, unfortunately. However, that should not be the focus of anyone's life. The focus of anyone's life should be they're going to be good people wherever you go. They're going to be accepting people where you go. Just remember that if a person has not found something worth giving up their life for, then we're not fit to live. You know, I stopped doing what I was doing from many years ago to tend to my daughter, to give her more time. And until I see her walking and talking, that's all I have in my mind. That's one of the things that I have in my mind, not all. Martin Luther King was given at the time, I believe it was $43,000 for the Nobel Peace Prize, I believe it's what it was. And Coretta Scott King was asked, what do you think he's going to do with all his money? And Coretta Scott King, according to what she says in the book, perhaps he's going to put it into his peace activities. And the Nobel Peace Prize people told her, how do you feel about this? That's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Martin Luther King was someone that many of us, if we have not had a chance to study, it is time to understand that Martin Luther King came to give us a life lesson that we're not being given in the schools. We're not being taught. And I'd say it goes further than that. Each and every one of you that is not a millionaire, that is not free from debt, including me, is a slave. Most people are slaves to money. Why? Because instead of having money work for them, they work for money. Unless you work, there's no money. In order to become free, emancipated, you have to have money work for you. When is now a good time to have money work for you? Yes, I know it's risky. Yes, I know you might lose it. And I just want to let you know, money is a game where you can either become a slave to it or you can have it work for you. You could still lose it, even if it's working for you. But what happens if you can get it back multiplied? When the last time that Martin Luther King got together to give his speech, at the time that he was shot, just before he was shot, there were gangs going around doing exactly what's been done in the last few weeks here in the US, causing havoc. And Martin Luther King was against this, and he spoke about it in his speech, in his last speech. And as he was shot, supposedly in his left shoulder, I believe is what it was, and the bullet worked its way down, this was going on. And if you've noticed, there was a time that gangs were being directed, and then it stopped, and then it augmented. The gangs augmented. Why? I don't know why. But what I do know is that what Martin Luther King wanted to instill in all of us has to be taught from the bottom up. And you're not going to get to everyone. However, if you change one person's life, it's better than changing nobody's life. Coretta Scott King didn't have an easy life. However, she had a husband who lived his purpose. If a man or a person has not found something worth giving his life for, they're not fit to live. Have you found something worth living for? And if you haven't, keep searching. Your kids are worth living for. Your spouse is worth living for. Whatever business you're trying to create, I hope it's worth living for. I expect it. This book, it's a little bit off what we wanted to do, but it's so much about what we want to do. Our brains go through a lot on a daily basis, and we have to train it so that when it sees hate, violence, or any of those negative emotions, that it knows that there's another way to look at things, to evolve. This book can be whatever you want it to be, but if it has to be anything, I'd ask you to consider, what are you living for? Is it fulfilling you? Does it fire you up? Do you get excited about it, thinking about it, doing part of it, working for it? This book is very powerful. And if there's anything you can take away from that, remember that question. What are you living for? What are you giving to your kids, to your spouse, to your friends, your immediate friends or family? Remember that if you don't take care of your body, where else are you going to live? And your body, spiritually, mentally, physically, you can do little things to improve your life. Little things. When the bus boycott went on, the biggest moment in all of that was unity, unification. We haven't seen that type of unity on a daily basis, but it happens. When we were quarantined, it happened worldwide. The world, nature improved. So there is possibility out there. However, how far are you willing to go? So this book has brought to me clarity on that most people in this world don't have an idea of how to understand other people's feelings. What does this mean? One simple word: listen. That's all we do when we hear these books. Listen. The more you listen, the more you train your ears, the more you listen, you will be able to understand. And remember, Martin Luther King was not one of these people who immediately reacted with violence. He listened. He tried to comprehend and to find an alternative method than the one that people were led to believe that involves hate, fighting, violence, and so on. You decide how you want to live. That's it for this review. Coretta Scott King's book. Very powerful book. I want to thank each and every one of you for your review because it was powerful as well. You all had emotion. I can feel it. And that's the first thing that I tried to do is, are they putting emotion into it? Yes, I felt your emotions. You each have talent. I believe that you will be more successful than you are today. What do you need to do? How much time did you meditate today? Did you take 5 minutes to meditate? Did you take 3 minutes to meditate? How about 1 minute? Just do it. So that's it for my review. If anyone wants to add anything that they forgot to say or some other question, this is your chance before we close up this group for the evening.
Just
Anyone?
one quick one, David. He said that writing is the word of the unheard. I thought that was very interesting. You know?
Yes.
So
Thank you.
he understood that, you know, how people felt about the
Yes.
writing, but he felt at the same time that they were giving white people more ammunition to say, well, you know, we might have given them the freedom that they needed, but now that they're writing and they're doing all of this carousing, they don't deserve it, you know? So
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons he was trying to prevent that.
That's correct. Thank you, Gina. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Sure. David, do you have something going on at 9 o'clock? I thought I saw something on the bottom of your okay.
I do, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it.
Oh, okay.
I will try to get to it. I will try because I'm not home and it's complicated on the phone. Normally I have it set up at home. So,
okay.
Yes. But thank you for reminding me, Gina, because I did forget.
Sure, just curious since I saw it there.
Yes. Anyone else want to add anything, any questions or any last minute observations? Whoops. All right. So I want to thank each and every one of you. You make this group amazing. You, by next year, by January, you're going to be unbelievable. You know, we're beyond almost 9 months into this Mastermind book club. And I have never listened to this many books. Never. And all I ask you is learn one thing. One thing will change your life. All right? You repeat one thing that you learn every so often, you're going to be so powerful. Do not concentrate on learning every single detail in a book. Learn one thing, and you will see the difference within you. So that's it tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Reg, Floyd, Elmer, Martha, Gina, Ty. Thank you for being here. This is your mastermind group. This is our mastermind group. And together, we can change the world one person at a time. Have a great evening. And until next week, this is your Mastermind Book Club. Have a blessed evening.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.
David.
Bye,
Well,
everybody.
night.
what's going to be our next
Thank you,
book?
David. Good night,
I'm going to
everyone.
put it, it's going to be the Art of Praying, I believe it's what it's called. Right? Very powerful book coming up tomorrow. All right. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night,
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. God bless.